The Texans offense showed some life on day 2 of practice in Greenbrier. Hey, listen, are the tides starting to turn? Is this the beginning of the offense coming together to lay to rest all of the concerns we've had so far in training camp?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode is for Texan fans all around. Thank you for coming back. If you're an everydayer from the Himalayas, I appreciate you. First time listening, thank you for lending your ear and listening to me, your Texans Credential Media member and Texans football analyst, John Hickman. And today is all about getting over the hump on some things, right? You got to look at the encouraging day from the offense per reports out in Greenbrier, West Virginia. And listen, getting over the hump, we have been waiting for the return of 2 players, Dameon Pierce being one of them, Christian Harris. Those guys are on track to take the field. Dameon Pierce is actually out there, didn't practice, but did get released from the PUP list, so he should be on the field taking snaps soon. And we go over the unofficial depth chart release. Man, listen, should we take that with a grain of salt? Is that the final look for this team? I know a lot of the concerns or question marks late on the offensive side of the ball, what the final 5 is going to look like, the wide receiver depth chart, all of those things we'll talk about today, and we'll follow and track that as the training camp and preseason period of this NFL season continues. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. So make sure you visit FanDuel today. Now, Texas fans, listen here. Yesterday, I spoke about the offense needing to show signs of life, fighting back, right? Listen, you don't want to just get beat up. You don't want to hear reports that, yeah, this is a great defense, and we should take this as a great sign. A good sign is how great this defense will be. I don't want to keep hearing that. I don't think you guys should want to keep hearing that, because that is the same thing we heard last year, and we know what the end of that result looks like. Not getting over the hump because of an inept offense. And we actually got fight out of the offense. And we actually got a scrap between Dalton Schultz and Russ Yeast. Even Cade Stover and C.J. Gardner-Johnson exchanged some words. So those guys are fighting back. First-team offense looked like Ariante Aristide at left tackle, Laken Tomlinson at left guard, Jake Andrews at center, Ed Ingram at right guard, Titus Howard over at right tackle. I think the Houston Texans should really flirt with the idea of Jaylin Thomas getting some of those first-team reps more consistently at left guard. He has probably been, in my opinion, the best left guard out there, though he's going up against the second team and maybe the third team. He's performed the best. And per DJ Bieniemy of ESPN, the first play of team drills for the Texans offense featured a big run from Nick Chubb. And it's funny that we get a big run from Nick Chubb the day that we get the news that Dameon Pierce is coming back, right? But he mentioned that it would have been for at least 30 yards. So that's a good thing. Also a big day from the rookie Cyclone wide receivers, Jayden Higgins and Jaylen Noel. Again, per DJ Bieniemy, they were cooking the second-team DBs. Jayden Higgins had 2 and Jaylen Noel had 1 deep reception on the day. A better outing for the rushing attack, and Davis Mills continues to stack good days and have good camp practices. He has consistently been the best eye test quarterback during camp. I want you guys to hear from D'Amico Ryans on what he thinks about the training camp competitiveness right now.
And we had a really good day today at practice. I saw very competitive periods on both sides. Like, we had a tough physical short yardage period today, and it was a lot of back and forth. Guys did a great job up front, D-line, O-line. Those guys were competing and battling. That's what you see every day. Our receivers and DBs, those guys competing. Receivers making plays, DBs making plays on the football. We have a really competitive team. That's my takeaway from our camp thus far, and that's how it should be. So I'm excited just to see these guys go play against someone else. It is that time of camp where it's going to be a little more chirpy. You're going to see fights and scuffles happening, but it's just you get tired of hitting the same person. You get tired of going against the same schemes over and over again. So it's that time for us to go play a game.
And that's perfect. I know they get tired of going up against each other, but for the offense, not only should they have been tired of going up against a very stout defense, if the offense can just move the ball and put points on the board, there's no doubt in my mind this is a top five. And I'm being fair. I'm being generous. This is a top five defense. So, of course, they are tired of that. They want to go up against somebody else, but I know that they're tired of getting their ass kicked, which has been what the reports have been out of training camp, what I've seen and brought to you guys out of training camp. But this is why this is encouraging to hear. Of course, I like to hear about fighting back and not necessarily physical throwing hands, though. I mean, for some of us who love the game of football, we know that that's inevitable, right? At one point, you're going to throw hands with the teammates. You get over it and you move on. You just continue to get better. And I mentioned on the previous podcast, and I'm going to say it again, this offense needs a shut up, stop worrying type of practice. Was that today? I'm not going to say that was today in full, right? But per reports, no, it was more of a balanced day, some good, some bad, but those reports were consistent when this was probably the best day where the offense showed the most life. Not the greatest day from C.J. Stroud, had some good moments, had some bad moments. Davis Mills, again, looked like the better quarterback of the bunch, but we know that C.J. Stroud is a, franchise quarterback for this team. He will be the starting quarterback. So you like to hear that, it's good to hear that Houston has a very good, I'm not going to call him dynamic, but a trustworthy backup quarterback. But this was a better day overall from the offense, and I think that's a good thing. Hey, listen, Nick Chubb, who since the second half of Friday's practice is starting to string it together. What does D'Amico Ryans like to say? Stacking good days, stacking good moments, and taking those good days and good moments and building off of that. And I think that Nick Chubb has done a very good job of taking the opportunity, getting himself back in game shape, getting himself back in shape, period, but taking those moments to, one day at a time and getting better each and every day. The young receivers having a good day, I think that's worth mentioning, and having good moments at the same time is encouraging to hear. For the most part, we've heard that, this day maybe Jayden Higgins got a little bit more busier than Jaylen Noel, or Jaylen Noel got a little bit more busier in the passing game and in the special team game than Jayden Higgins. There was a few days where you wouldn't really hear much about Jayden Higgins out there. So hearing that those two guys, who the Houston Texans offense will need to be good this year. They're going to need them in the short game. They're going to need them passing down the field for explosive plays. They're going to need them in special teams. Hearing that they had a good day together, I think is encouraging. And with DP being back, what does that mean for the Texas running back group? Up next, the running back room gets a familiar face back. But is it too late? Don't go nowhere. We got Locked On Texans. This is probably going to be called the Fight Back Show. Before we get into fighting back and Dameon Pierce coming back, this is the perfect time to let you guys know that Yahoo Fantasy Football is the place you need to be if you love fantasy football. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here. And that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. And the Locked On Texans Fantasy Football League will be hosted on Yahoo Fantasy Sports. And if you are interested in joining the league, just let me know in the comments. I can get your information, send you over what you need. 14-man league. We got about 8 spots left. And if we get an overwhelming number, I'm going to make another Yahoo Fantasy Sports League so we can all have fun together. But listen, with Yahoo Fantasy Sports, to celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped the Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's only one team left standing. it gets no better than that. That's competitive. That's fun. That's watching the waiver wire like you've never watched it before, is to make sure that I can't slip this week. That's what Yahoo is doing, y'all. With the season around the corner, now is the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. Welcome back, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Dameon Pierce is back. What does that mean for the running back group? First, a little housekeeping. The Texans signed fullback tight end Dalton King, and in a corresponding move, they have waived Jared Wayne. Jared Wayne, I thought, was probably having his best training camp since he arrived to Houston. There may be some, opportunity there for him to return back to the practice squad. I know a few of you guys have some negative comments to say, being as though one moment that Jared Wayne would probably always be linked to would be an unfortunate injury. We're not going to dwell on that here on the show. I do hope that Jared Wayne lands on his feet. And again, I thought that he was having the best training camp he's had since entering in the NFL. There was no Dylan Horton on Tuesday, didn't participate physically in practice. He was watching in street clothes, per Houston Chronicles' own John Alexander. Now hear from D'Amico Ryans on what running back Dameon Pierce adds to the run game and his thoughts on the run game from Tuesday practice. D'Amico, what you got to say?
Today from our run game, you saw the level of physicality and intensity that it takes to run the football from our offensive line. So that's where it all starts. They had the right mindset. You got the right mindset, you're going to move people off the line of scrimmage. So that's where it starts. So they're ready to roll from that standpoint. They had a good day in the run game. Yeah, Dameon has played a lot of good football in his career. He's rushed for over 1,000 yards. He's made, those home run plays. He's done it as the kick returner. So he's just a well-rounded player who is not new for him. The game isn't too big for him. And when the lights are on, Dameon, we know he can go out and perform well. So whenever that time comes for him to get back out there, it's just exciting to see him out there.
So that was Coach talking about the run game and Dameon Pierce, and I want to highlight that in mentioning, what he saw from the run game on Tuesday, mentioning, getting guys out the way. This is, and I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, this is a big reason why I think Jake Andrews has beat out Jared Patterson. I really do. I think the run support that Andrews brings for Cole Popovich, Nick Caley, and this offense is something that, from a group perspective in that center, looking at the center position, they don't feel that they have anywhere else but Jake Andrews. And just watching it with my 4 eyes, I got 2 of them off right now, but watching Jake Andrews at practice, when I have the opportunity to do so, what you really love about Andrews is his base. He gets up under you, and getting up under a player, great combo blocker, by the way. I think I mentioned that on the show previously to this one, but getting up under that D tackle, I think, provides that leverage to allow someone that's a little bit on the shorter side. And centers are typically of the shorter group, the shorter offensive lineman of the offensive line room altogether. But that base has allowed for him to get up on the guys and move a body out the way. And I think from a technical standpoint, that is what has led to Andrews getting the nod over Jared Patterson. But he also mentioned Dameon Pierce, and it mentions something about Dameon Pierce that we kind of forget or don't talk about as much, simply because it comes so few and far in between. Especially you look at last year, when the opportunities for Dameon Pierce became extremely scarce throughout the year. I think he had a few healthy scratches, but he linked home run playability to Dameon Pierce. And throughout Dameon's time here in Houston, we've seen some big runs from Dameon Pierce. If the lane is there, if that running crease is there, and more importantly, if it isn't in a spot where Dameon has to do a lot of contemplating on what do I need to do here, if he's just hitting the hole and going, Dameon Pierce's biggest attribute is how scary he is once he gets to the second level. The problem is in Dameon Pierce's career, especially after his rookie year, where he nearly rushed for 1,000 yards, but also had over 1,000 all-purpose yards. Dameon doesn't get to the second level a lot. Bad offensive line play, and I also think the scheme change, where especially in that first year where they was trying to get him involved, it wasn't working out a lot. Towards the end of the year, they switched over to Devin Singletary. Should the Houston Texans call up the Giants or wherever Devin Singletary is right now and see if he's available? I don't know. Perform well for the Houston Texans. He would have been a 1,000-yard rusher if they gave him the ball earlier. But, coming into last year, there were moments where Dameon Pierce wasn't on the field or maybe had only been regulated to special teams. So he does have that big play ability. And I'm glad that Coach D'Amico Ryans pointed that out. But this is the perfect time for DP to get back out there. New system. Most of us feel like plays into his strengths as a runner. And maybe not this week because he's just now getting into the groove of things. But maybe at some point next week, once Houston comes back to Houston, once the Texans come back to Houston, we should start seeing Dameon Pierce split some of those carries with the ones, especially considering by that point, we would have seen DP getting himself into practice shape, a little bit more game shape. Don't know if they'll put him out there Saturday. Maybe they should. Maybe it's too early. I'm not going to say a yes or no to that. But we would have also saw by that point of next week and have a good view on how Nick Chubb looked with his time and opportunity with the first team after Saturday's preseason game. The Texans want to run the ball. The Texans want to protect the quarterback, and they also want to sustain drives. Which of the two will that be? This is the competition Houston talked about the entire summer. Competition. So right now, for the RB2 role, and with the uncertainty, even though Aaron Wilson has reported that the Texans expect for Joe Mixon to be ready to start of week one, you're going to need somebody there, somebody that you can trust and lean on. And I'll say this. For one, I am very interested in this potential camp and depth battle between Chubb and DP. Few implications are on the line here. Number one, is Nick Chubb the better back for what Houston is asking for, or will DP's youth give him the edge? Neither 2024 campaign gives one the edge over the other, but they both have something to prove. Both hard runners that you want to get north and south. So who performs better there? But let's just say neither one of those players, this will be a bad circumstance for the Houston Texans if this happens. But let's just say neither one of those players really prove real worth either for RB2 or just for the rest of the depth and how that running back room can shake together. Number two is if they are both underperforming, with that open door, will that open the door for Woody Marks as the running back two on his roster? Or will the Houston Texans potentially have to look outside the building for another back? And I mentioned Devin Singletary. As much as Nick Chubb has been stacking good moments at practice the last few days, has he just been undoubtedly better than Woody Marks? For me, I'm going to say no. Houston is banking on, again, Joe Mixon being available week one for the Rams. But what I call smart is staying ready so you don't have to get ready. And in this case, being ready to have a back on a roster that can relieve Joe Mixon, not only for week one, but through the halfway point of the season, is a focus the Houston Texans should have right now. But I am going to be looking closely into the left guard, the center battle, the running back battle, essentially because running backs can't do nothing with a bad offensive line, okay? Let's just say the running back has a good offensive line or an average offensive line. What are they doing to elevate that room, elevate the protection around the quarterback, and elevate themselves all together? Now, the unofficial depth chart has been released. Any surprises, or does everything look to be where it should be? More Texans roster talk to close out today's show. Don't go nowhere. We got more Locked On Texans. And before we get to the Locked On Texans last segment of the day, this is something that I want to let you guys know, especially for our first timers. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? You can do that with FanDuel. You can get in on the game while your friends, or I don't know, getting sunburned at the beach, getting ready to go back to work because they're teachers in education. No matter what it is, like you can be doing whatever you want to and also still getting in on the thrill of the sports action. Some of you guys have been listening to the Locked On Texas podcast. Some of you guys have been using FanDuel to track your favorite matchups. The app also keeps it fresh with daily new promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast payout, and makes every regular season game, feel like a must-watch event. New to FanDuel? Well, no problem. New customers can bet just $5 and they'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Again, visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you for making Locked On Texans your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Bets. Betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers have daily MLB locks and can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Now, the unofficial depth chart has been released, and this is somewhat of the D'Amico Ryan show because I am pulling from D'Amico Ryan's questions at his post-practice press conference, where D'Amico Ryan has one of the more glowing smiles. I'm not even going to say in Houston's sports culture and sports world, but throughout the NFL and the sports world altogether in this country. So with the unofficial depth chart being released, I want you to just take a second. What do you think D'Amico Ryan is going to say? Just take a second. Okay, I'm going to let you know how D'Amico Ryan's I'm going to let you know what D'Amico Ryan thinks about the process of what goes into the unofficial depth chart.
Omar gives it to me, and I just say, let everybody have it, tear it up, and everybody make a big deal out of who's where because it's unofficial.
Shout out to Omar. Omar's a great dude, man. One of the communication guys, one of the head communication guys for the Houston Texans. But yeah, I mean, Coach, if anybody knows, I think he knows, man. Of course, this is going to be a talking point. Of course, we're going to find speculation, and of course, we're going to look at things maybe from a different point of view. So, as of right now, of course, there is no breaking news here. C.J. Stroud is starting. No Joe Mixon in the running back room. So, the depth chart looks like Nick Chubb, Dameon Pierce, Dare Ogunbowale, Woody Marks, Jawar Jordan, with J.J. Taylor and British Brooks filling it the rest out the running back room. Nico Collins, Christian Kirk, the rookie, Jayden Higgins all have wide receiver 1 titles. Xavier Hutchinson, Jaylen Noel, Justin Watson, Braxton Berrios, John Mechie is kind of buried on this wide receiver depth chart. Johnny Johnson, the third, Xavier Johnson, Daniel Jackson. So no real surprise there. Not at all, actually. Initially, it featured Jerry Wayne, but we know that he has been waived. I will say that Justin Watson being a little bit higher than Braxton Berrios, I'm not going to say it's concerning, but it is surprising for me. Dalton Schultz rounds it out. He's a starting tight end, of course. Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson, Jared Patterson. Titus Howard at right guard. Ariante Aristry, right tackle. Jared Patterson is listed as the center, number one center on his roster. And again, D'Amico knows, we're going to find something to talk about, but this is one of those moments where I kind of wonder, when was this unofficial depth chart created, and are they just now getting around to releasing it? Because every practice, for the most part, as a matter of fact, I can't think of one practice where Jake Andrews was not the starting center for the Houston Texans going out there with the ones. But Jake Andrews is the backup. Juice Scruggs is the backup left guard. Ed Ingram is the backup right guard. Blake Fisher backup right tackle. Zach Thomas backup left tackle. Now, this is where, again, I'm going to say I can't wait to get to preseason because, in my opinion, guys, Jaylin Thomas, who I think was drafted as a center and maybe played some tackle, maybe drafted at tackle and then played some center, I'm not sure. But Jaylin Thomas has been the best option at left guard. So Kamari Lassiter and Derek Stingley, of course, they round out the starting cornerbacks. Jaylon Smith. and this is something that Jaylon Smith was a player that I thought I was going to be like, man, why did they take him? You know, he was a top 100 player. I looked at his tape. I saw a lot of Jalen Petrie in his game, right? And I'm like, okay, but Houston needs another outside cornerback. And guys, the young man has made plays. Kamari Lassiter has been by far the best, not named Will Anderson, the best defensive player. We don't hear about Derek Stingley a lot, and that's because he ain't getting thrown to a lot. But Kamari Lassiter has been tried a lot. And it's probably been about 8 out of 10 times Kamari Lassiter is making a play. And I'm not lying. He did it today, intercepted C.J. Stroud. He's making life incredibly difficult on those receivers and quarterbacks. So shout out to Kamari Lassiter. But in terms of the player that I just was blown back by and impressed by, it's been Jaylon Smith. No matter where he's lined up, inside, outside, he has performed extremely well. And so he is currently, to this unofficial depth chart, he is the backup, and I'm going to go ahead and say CB3, and I'm going to go ahead and take a step further and say that is where he should be this year. He should be Houston's CB3. Kalen Bullock, of course, CJ Gardner-Johnson, of course, Jayden Reed, the rookie, backup safety, MJ Stewart, backup safety. Everything else looks kind of fair. Aziz, Henry T, the two starting linebackers. And I can't wait to talk to Stan about that because he felt like, hey, this was going to be the, EJ Speed was brought in to take Henry T's spot. And I said, no, wait a minute. Henry T is going to lock that down. Henry T is going to lock that down. EJ Speed, I believe, was more so for insurance for Christian Harris, who is out there getting his body right. And I think we're going to hear him. Well, we're going to see him play some football soon. May just be from a how can I put this, from a preseason standpoint, like probably practice standpoint. Don't know if they're going to put him out there with those hamstring injuries, and I'm sure every sport around the league, around the country, looked at how hamstring injuries impacted the NBA, specifically the NBA Finals Game 7. And so teams, if you have a hamstring injury, especially if it's something that's been lingering, I think teams are being a little bit more cautious. So maybe he just gets out there for practice. Maybe we don't see him in preseason. I personally would like to see Christian Harris in preseason, but maybe they want to be as cautious as possible because they view him as that X factor type of player. Who knows? But he is the second linebacker in front of EJ Speed on the unofficial depth chart. Take that with a grain of salt. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. If you want to get down with the fantasy league, all you got to do is ask. We'll get you hooked up. I can't wait to continue to talk Texans throughout the week and bringing it to you guys. Until next time, ladies and gents, peace.